Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Trisha Paytas and what she posted recently on YouTube. I was really debating on if I was really gonna talk about this or not. I'm hesitant to dive into mental disorders on YouTube because I'm not giving advice, I'm not giving treatment, I'm just talking about it, but you have to be careful when you talk about mental disorders. There's so much stigma around them that it is what it is. So, if you're not familiar with what Trisha did, she got on camera and started talking about her multiple personality disorder, which is not a term that we still use. It's known as dissociative identity disorder now, but she talks about her multiple personalities and all these things and a lot of misinformation about the disorder, which she's obviously not educated on the ins and outs of this diagnosis. So she really just kind of spewed whatever she thought was right, and like all mental disorders, whatever we think about them is really not what's actually accurate. So I'm gonna talk about DID and share some other channels that have more information on DID if you're interested, and why Trisha Paytas, the information that she gave, is all completely wrong. So let's get into it. So DID is a dissociative disorder. It was originally called multiple personality disorder, but it's not a personality disorder. Personalities are involved in the disorder. I said disorder like 15 times. So I'm going to be referring to it as DID from now on. So there's different types of dissociative disorders. There's the identity one that we're talking about now, an amnesia one, and a depersonalization, derealization one, which those two are different, but they all have similar facets, which is why they're all under the same umbrella. So with DID, there is some type of trauma, whether it be an accident, be a victim of a crime, natural disaster, things like that, that cause such severe trauma that the brain kind of compartmentalizes and splits off that what happened so that the rest of the brain can continue and get through the trauma, and then all of the bad is in one area, is walled off, and the other part of the brain can then function as normal. So then that splits the personality, so that one personality has the trauma, the other personality is able to function like normal, and you don't get like one personality per trauma or whatever. However it splits is however the brain splits it, so you could have just one. The requirement is at least two identities, which would be the host identity and then the alter, as a lot of people refer to it, but there can be many. It's not like one trauma gets one alter like that. The brain splits it however it feels necessary. So when the host is the dominant personality, the one that is out most often, and then the alters come out depending on what's going on, or what the person is going through, or what they're talking about, or what they're doing, or whatever. So a lot of, not always, but a lot of times they have different voices, or they're maybe different ages, different genders, different body types. Like they could be like a big strong guy when the host is like a petite girl or whatever. They can be children, they can be older. So one stigma that I want to address right here is that, and this is something I used to believe also before I educated myself through school, is if the person knows about their alters, they obviously are faking it, because you're supposed to be like not remembering what's going on or whatever. And amnesia is a part of this diagnosis, but the person can feel when it's kind of happening. They like feel it in their, however it manifests. I don't know how that feels personally. They will know about their alter. They'll know it's coming, and then the alter introduces themselves. But to a person who is not educated on this particular diagnosis, you kind of like think like, oh, they're just like, this is Sally, I'm 45. Like that's not, you think, oh, that's dumb, that's not real. But it really is like that. And like their voice changes, their demeanor changes, everything, which is very trippy to see in person or like on camera, or like there's many videos online about that. It's very interesting to watch, but it is real. As wild as it seems for someone to just like switch on camera like that, you kind of like see it come over them or whatever, it is real. As unusual as it might seem, it is real. So between the different personalities, they may not necessarily know everything about the other ones. Like if the one is manifesting all the trauma, a different one may not really know about them or may not like them. There's a documentary, I think I watched it on Netflix at one point a while ago, but it's online too, about a woman who has like 7 personalities, and she like switches through them, but like some of them don't like the other ones, and one of them is violent, and one of them is very childlike. And
I could show you the new Lego that I've got that I'm going to start building soon.
Everything, so I'm gonna link that down below so you can watch it. One thing I want to mention also is that possessions or religious embodiments are not considered a dissociative disorder. Those are religious and cultural things, so they're not really considered a disorder in that sense. So if someone has an extreme religious thing come over them, they're not part of this category, and they're not really considered to be a diagnosis. So some risk factors include childhood trauma. About 90% of the cases in the US, Canada, and Europe are stemmed from a childhood trauma of some kind, physical, sexual, emotional, like that, which just goes to show how important it is how we treat the young people in our lives, because obviously they're developing how they want to be as an adult, and it's very sponge-like of a mind, and any negativity that you give them can really affect them emotionally and obviously in this manner. So how is this disorder treated? Excellent question. Most often is some kind of a psychotherapy with a licensed professional. I am not one of the licensed professionals, so if you are seeking treatment, look for a professional psychiatrist or a licensed psychologist to seek treatment from. So this psychotherapy. So psychotherapy is like it can be talk therapy, can be lots of different kinds of therapy that will kind of help you gain control of the alter personalities and learn how to manage them, and like when they come out and how to manage them that way. Medication is not really effective treatment, although it can treat some side effects of this condition, like if the person becomes depressed or is very anxious. Medications can help those facets, but it's not necessarily going to affect the personalities coming out and taking over and things like that. Hypnosis has been used in some cases to treat it. I don't know the effectiveness of that, but that could be an option if maybe someone has tried other options and they're not really working. That could be an option. You just have to try it out, I guess, and see how that affects you and if it helps. Okay, so now that we've generally defined what DID is in a very broad manner, we're going to get into some things that Trisha said in her video, and it was really difficult to watch, honestly, because nearly everything she said was like wrong, 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 and I'm not an expert at all, but I have educated myself on this topic, so everything she said was just extreme misinformation. Let's just talk about it. So first off, Trisha says she self-diagnosed herself. You can't self-diagnose yourself with anything. You have to see a doctor to be officially diagnosed with something. So right off the bat, self-diagnosing is never good, because obviously you wouldn't really know every single detail that's required to meet a diagnosis. Especially in the DSM-5, you have to have X amount of symptoms within a certain time frame, How would you know that? Anyway. She kind of said something about like it changes each day, like each day is a different person, when really it's more about what's going on in the person's life. Like if they're talking about their disorder, that might bring up a different one. So it's not like this day I'm this person, this day I'm this person. That's not really how it works. One thing she did say that was actually correct is that one of her alters is non-human, which that can be true. With childhood trauma, their mind creates an alter based on something or someone that can protect them or stand up to the trauma or whatever. So like Dissociated talked about this in her channel before, which I've been watching her. Like they make like a dragon, like strong, fierce, can breathe fire, can fly away, can defend themselves from whatever's going on in the child's life, or can fly away from whatever's going on in the child's life. So that if their alter is like a nonsensical creature, they're not making it up. They made it when they were a child. So Trisha talked about how one of her alters, Trixie, was there before the trauma. Like the trauma happened to Trixie, not to her, which doesn't really quite follow with how this disorder is formed. Not to say that she didn't go through a trauma, made Trixie, and then went through another trauma that happened to Trixie, but normally the alter comes after the trauma, not before. I don't know every detail of Trisha's life, so maybe something had happened to her before she created Trixie, and then something else happened to Trixie. I don't know. Yeah, I find it hard to believe anything Trisha says, because she's so well known for just being a troll and making up things and doing stuff for attention and whatever, and I don't want to discount her if this is actually something she's really going through. But as we know from The Rewired Soul, you can't just make assumptions about someone's mental health and talk about it like it is or is not real. So if Trisha is going through this, I really hope that she seeks some professional help and then is better educated on this whole diagnosis in general, so she can better help herself and other people. Spreading this kind of misinformation really can set back other people in this situation as well, and think maybe other misleading things about it. So if this is something that she's going through, I really hope she's able to find some proper help. So in the video, she calls Dissociated crazy. Not right. Not what you should do. I find it hard to believe that if she was going through what she's going through, I'm sure people would have called her crazy too, and she would know how that felt. And a lot of people call people with mental disorders crazy because you can't see, feel what's going on with them, and so just don't call people crazy. Just don't. It's generally just not really a good thing to do. I know it's an easy word to go to, and there's a lot of them that are real easy to go to that really stigmatize mental health. Just don't call people crazy. Just don't. So these are some other stigmas that come along with this particular diagnosis in general, along with all other mental disorders, but especially with this one, that people are like making it up, doing it for attention, doing it for money, doing this so they don't have to work. And I can understand when people think that, because there's so many videos online of switching on camera, meet my 7 alters, and I'm like, how? They just all happened to spring up right when you were filming? Okay, like, I see why people think that, but it's the matter of talking about the disorder and what's going on, and any kind of stressor in your life can bring up your other personalities. So it makes perfect sense that if you're talking about the disorder and they start popping up, like that makes perfect sense now that I know about the disorder and I've educated myself on it. But watching these videos before I was educated, you're like, okay, yeah, okay, they just happen to come up like right when you're filming. Amazing. Like, okay, so it's easy to just call them liars and faking it and doing this and doing that, whatever. On that documentary about the woman, she did not work. She was on disability and receiving government funding and everything. And someone might look at that and say, well, obviously you just don't want to work. You're obviously just lazy and you're using this to whatever. When really it's not true. And if you watch any length of that video, you would see that she really does not have quite a grasp on her alters as maybe other people do. So it'd be really hard to like how could you work a phone, like answering phones in an office? Each person answers a different office and you don't know what the other person said, and there's no way to find out because you have to keep switching, and it just would be really difficult to do anything. And there's not one job I can think of that's not stressful. Honestly, there's not one I can think of that's not stressful in any way. So any little bit of stress maybe would flip you into a different alter. How would you possibly be able to function? I mean, it would be really difficult. The other stigma that I brought up before is that if you know about your alters, then you're obviously faking, because you're not supposed to know when you're switching. You're not supposed to know what the other alters are like and who they are and everything. But even if you don't know right off the bat that you have this disorder, I mean, your friends would see that and say, you're acting so differently. Or maybe if you act a different way and then you switch back to your host and they're like, why were you acting like that? And you're like, acting like what? What do you mean? Or whatever. So, and now with technology, we can flip up a phone and record anything and everything. So that is a really negative stigma about this disorder that would make people think that if you know about your issue, you're obviously faking, when in reality, that's not true. So I will link down below some other channels that have a lot more information about DID than I have given, than I know. I'll link them down below. So if you like this video, please start CPR my like button and defibrillate my subscribe button with 200 joules. And if you're not CPR certified, there is a link down below to find a class. It's only a one-day class, and then you can become CPR certified and save a life. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.